Okay, Phil, that was Mike Zapolin, better known as Zappy, and his film, uh, The Reality of Truth. It's very popular right now online. You can get it on YouTube and watch it. He said they had several million people that have looked at it in the last 3 months. So, I mean, he's very passionate about psychedelics, or what he calls plant medicine. And it's interesting. I mean, obviously, there's some serious research going on in this area now. We've had other folks that are looking at it. It's been on research has been on hold for 50 years, but I think there are certain areas like with PTSD and other certain psychological ailments that people have that this seems to help. But I think you have to be very guarded about how you do it, and its relationship to spirituality.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I should confess to the listeners, because we've had a few shows about psychedelics recently. I just want to say that I haven't used any for more than 40 years now. So, all you dealers, all the police, stay away.
So yeah,
But I, I I think you're right. They need to be used carefully and with sort of rigorous protection,
hmm
and not uh, and in a spiritual context, I think it's important for what he said about set and setting, and that the intent, if it's spiritual, isn't just some rationalization for just getting high.
right,
I mean, if it's with spiritual intent, it might have a spiritual effect
right.
for the better.
Right. And
And
I think some people have certain psychological ailments or imbalances or whatever, and they have to be especially careful because
absolutely,
these things can be very powerful. And then, there is a Food and Drug Administration, and you can complain about them all you want, but at least generally you know what you're getting, and there's the dosages and that sort of thing are very monitored. Now, one thing I want to ask you about, Phil, you're in
wait, I
sensory.
want to I want
Go
to
ahead.
add
Go ahead.
something to I want to add
Yeah.
something to that. Um, I think it's important to realize that the people who are doing research on these substances,
hmm
and not just for healing purposes, but also um, research on spiritual experience, they're very careful about who is eligible for the experiments and who is not. So there are certain things that are known along the lines of what you said about, certain people with certain profiles should proceed with extra care.
Right, right. And he, uh, he acknowledged that, and I think he also made the point that there's a lot of prescription medicines that are really messing people up, and that's totally true.
Well,
And I
absolutely
think
true.
Zappy's intentions are 100% honorable and good. He really, really
Sure.
wants to help people. Very successful guy that's turned toward to spirituality. Now, from my own experience, back in the day, I got involved with meditation with TM before psychedelics became usually popular where I was. And
Huh.
sort of the angle was
Where did
then,
where did you live?
well, yeah, right, well, I was on the East Coast, which was always, it was somewhat behind the West Coast in terms of all that stuff. But what happened was then, well, no, look, it was around, definitely. But what people were saying back then, the first people I encountered with meditation was, yeah, people are doing these psychedelics and they're having experiences of higher consciousness and oneness and this and that, but it's not sustainable. If you really want to have that experience, you have to go inward and you have to, develop it, and the nervous system has to be cultured to reflect that experience. Now, some could argue people have been meditating 30, 40 years and they still haven't had those powerful experiences, but they maybe have gotten some other good out of meditation or whatever. So that was
Sure.
one thing. And then they always tell the story about the guru of Baba Ramdas, about how he was given LSD and
Yeah.
it didn't have any effect on him because he was already there. You probably remember that story or know that story better
Oh
than I
yeah.
do.
Oh yeah.
What
I've
was that
told
story?
that story. Well, when Ram Dass, before he was Ram Dass when he was Richard Alpert and uh, on a trip to India when he first met Neem Karoli Baba.
Neem Karoli Baba, that
Uh,
was the guru. Yeah,
Neem Karoli, or Maharaji as he was called, said, "Give me some of that medicine, that stuff
right,
you carry with you and you talk about." And Ram Dass was hesitant because Neem Karoli was old. He no one knew better than Ram Dass that there could be bad effects of these things. But he decided to do it, and and Neem Karoli took a whole bunch of it, and according to Ram Dass, nothing happened, and that was an eye-opening experience for him.
wow,
That you can be in these high states and be immune
right,
to
right,
such things, but I, at the same time, I think Zappy's argument when we talked to him about how people who are yogis and spiritual people diminish the value of the possible value of entheogens. Um, he pointed out to some of them, at least, that they got onto their spiritual path
right,
as a result of taking drugs, or that the drugs were an opening for
right,
them. And even if, like you and me, we left them behind, I always acknowledge that those early drug experiences were eye opening, and they set me on my path.
right,
I have to tell a story in that regard. I may have told it here before, but when I was researching American Veda, I was researching that period after the Beatles were in India, when Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was the most famous guru on the planet, and he gave talks in huge auditoriums, and one of them was Madison Square Garden. And afterward, at a press conference, one of the people in the room was Allen Ginsberg, and he busted Maharishi essentially for speaking badly about LSD. And whoops, you there?
yeah,
And what he said was, if it weren't for LSD, most of the people at Madison Square Garden wouldn't be there to hear you. And there was truth to that.
right, right,
In
right,
1968, people had gone from the drug culture, and then they said, "Oh, wait, I could do this with meditation. I could expand my mind with meditation. I could improve my life with yoga. I don't need the unpredictability
right.
and the danger."
Right.
And
The
so
other the
many
other thing
people
I
moved in
would say,
that
Phil, and I wanted to get your thought on this, and that is, if I look back to that period of time, the people who didn't get involved in yoga or just walk away from the drug culture or the psychedelic culture and all, and just stayed with psychedelics for 40, I don't know anybody actually that I can think of that stayed
I
with it
do.
40 years. I can't say that those people who stayed way longer with it really look like they were doing wonderfully, or that they were continuing to gain from it. I
Well,
think, like you said, maybe they were.
I know people who have been smoking marijuana for 40, 50 years on a regular basis, and taking the occasional LSD, and they're functioning quite
Hmm.
well and normally. I mean, I don't know what it might really be going on, or how it's affected them on a deeper level that's not visible. Um, but um, but those are the sort of minor drugs. But to take the stronger ones on a more frequent basis, that's a different issue.
Right, right.
And I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure it varies from one person to the
right,
next.
right. By the way, his film, which I want to mention again to people, you can go to the realityoftruth.com, and also he said it's on YouTube now. And a number of the people featured in that film, like Deepak Chopra and uh, Michael Beckwith and Marianne Williamson, have been on our show,
That's
and
right.
there are others that have that are in that show that we will be having that we might not have had before. So yeah, I mean it's definitely
Maybe
part of
that should be a goal. We should have everybody
everybody.
in that film on our show.
Sri Sri and Ram Dass and well, Ram
Uh,
Dass is not
we
available
try,
these days because of his
right?
health. but in any event, I think Zappy is a very sincere guy. I think his main goal is to help people to evolve himself, and his film gets into these things. He's obviously done a lot with Deepak Chopra, and what he brings out, this area of psychedelics as it is coming out today, is definitely part of the contemporary spirituality scene, and it's in there. Some people like it, some people don't like it. Some people acknowledge it as a way to be introduced. Other people see it as a procedure to help one grow psychologically, spiritually. So people can decide for themselves. But it's definitely out there, and it's definitely something that's being more seriously looked at and discussed. So it's
Yep.
and yeah, and like we said, we've had other people on. We had, who was it, Anthony Bosis, who is doing the
Yep.
research at New York University Medical School on psilocybin, and we had folks on talking about ayahuasca. And so we understand that's part of it, and people have to really look at it, think about it, and see what they think. And
We need to find the pro alcohol group.
yeah, I don't know. There's always somebody out there that's
Yeah, it
willing
would be. Yeah.
to promote anything in the name of spirituality, but I don't know. That might be a tough
Okay.
one. All right, Phil. Till next time, and again, I'm going to remind listeners: this is July 2017, and Phil is on the verge of completing his biography of Paramahansa Yogananda. He is
He's on the
perhaps
verge.
days away from finishing.
He's of the first draft.
Yeah. Well, you got to have a first draft to go on, but it's
That's right.
when I know we've asked you this before, but for people that haven't heard the answer, when do you think the book will be finished and out
The
and about?
publication date is around sometime around the end of April, 2018.
2018. Not that far away, Phil. Good luck to you.
Thanks for the reminder.
All right, over and out.
Okay.